Hey, can you find a water bottle for me?
Something so simple.
Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Friday, June the 8th. Well, a lot of the excitement in Arkansas today is going through the 43-page criminal information against ex-lobbyist Rusty Cranford and trying to figure out who all the anonymous names and entities are that benefited from his illegal activities, who got the World Series tickets, who got campaign money raised for him at places from Sim's Barbecue to the Capitol Hotel, who got illegal campaign contributions, what agencies benefited from money, state money directed to them as a result of these illegal activities. There's really been a scarcity of strong reaction from state officials, perhaps because there's so much complicity in all this operation. The governor says he's going to be careful on commenting. He needs to learn more. Yes, his nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson, the state senator, has been identified as a recipient of $500,000 in illegal retainers fees from this crooked lobbyist, which the lobbyist said Hutchinson was very valuable to him in getting things done at the legislature. I bet he was. Hutchinson said this was just legitimate legal work. Of course, there is a state law that says you can't receive money from an outside agency to do work for people in the legislature. Was this lobbying or was it just legal fees? Well, that's something that the feds may eventually decide. Also, the state Democratic Party chair, Michael John Gray, said that if somebody is indicted while sitting in the legislature, they should resign. Well, we've had a number of former legislators who've already pleaded guilty or been found guilty. There's not a lot of ifs to work for them. It's time to clean up the swamp. It's time to pass laws to end what was done by Jeremy Hutchinson as what he says is a matter of law. It's time to get rid of the company that still has tens of millions of dollars in contracts to do mental health and other services in Arkansas, thanks to some past corrupt activities by people who may no longer be there, but set up a system that benefits that company still today. They're suffering no recompense. They even call themselves victim. They want some money back, money that was paid to their executives in kickbacks and in other ways. There's also this interesting angle. It turns out that Teach for America, that do-good organization to put brainy college kids in school classrooms, hired Rusty Cranford, the now pleaded guilty lobbyist, to help it get some money to put Teach for America teachers in schools around Arkansas. Well, it worked with Jeremy Hutchinson's help and his lobbying of his Uncle Asa in the governor's office. They got $3 million devoted to Teach for America in Arkansas. And also, but they had to do that, they had to get Walter Hussman, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette publisher, and some other rich guys to raise $3 million to hire TFA teachers in Little Rock. Nobody's saying any of these people did anything illegal, but why would you hire Rusty Cranford? Is that what it takes, hiring somebody who has an in with Jeremy Hutchinson to get $3 million? What's Asa have to say? Nothing so far. There are a lot of questions, not a lot of answers so far. Federal Judge Christine Baker had a hearing today on whether to again try to prevent the state from enforcing a state law that basically put medical abortions out of business in Arkansas because the clinics that provided them don't have arrangements with doctors with hospital admitting privileges. A law like this in another state has been declared unconstitutional. She declared this unconstitutional, but the conservative 8th Circuit Court of Appeals let it take effect. It wants more evidence that some real women really will be harmed, and how many of them. How many women is too many? That's the question Judge Baker has to decide. She's going to take more information because the 8th Circuit's making it so hard for women to have medical rights in Arkansas. Here's another interesting bribery story. There seems to be a lot of them in Arkansas today. The Arkansas Supreme Court yesterday released a letter it received from the Attorney General's office that says a member of the State Medical Marijuana Commission received a bribe offer from somebody seeking one of the permits to grow marijuana in the state. The commissioner, who was not identified, said he didn't take the money, but he also didn't report the bribe. Somebody else reported it to the state. There are a lot of unanswered questions here. What is very clear is that the problems mount over the procedure and the conflicts and questions that surround the commission's award of cultivation permits. If it does go back to the commission after a decision before the state Supreme Court of a lower court ruling that threw out the permits, they ought to do the right thing and put this in the hands of somebody independent with clean hands who hasn't raised questions about their ethical standards. The State Court of Appeals ruled this Wednesday, we learned from original reporting by Jeannie Roberts, Democrat Gazette, that a person not identified in the court records could not get off the child maltreatment registry because his child had died in a hot car some 3 years ago. because the father had forgotten that he was in the back seat when he went to work. This is actually the case of Judge Wade Naramore of Hot Springs. He's a juvenile judge in Hot Springs. The Supreme Court, however, said he could go back to being a juvenile judge just as long as he didn't hear abuse and neglect cases. The fact that he remains on the child maltreatment registry while hearing juvenile cases perhaps will be fodder for others who are trying to get off that registry and raising questions whether being a judge means you get a little bit better treatment than others might in seeking employment despite being placed on that register. Finally, this from Donald Trump. There's always something to talk about that's worth resisting. The latest is that Trump's Justice Department says it's happy to go along with the lawsuit by Republican attorneys general like Leslie Rutledge and not enforce strong elements of the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, a really particularly important one, important to a lot of sick people in America. It doesn't want to enforce the rule that says you can't deny insurance or charge people more for having pre-existing health conditions. That'll be bad news to people. Now, they don't want this to take effect until after the election, but I suspect word will get around of what the Republicans want to do to sick people in America. Resist. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back next week.